Isaccs is an award-winning business consultant and technology specialist with over 30 years of industry experience. He's been a member and supporter of Launchpad Job Club since 2017. He has informally assisted his Launchpad peers for many years and recently obtained a professional career coaching role in the Cockrell School of Engineering at the University of Texas. During his successful career, he's had to seek a new job 9 times. 6 of those were due to an unexpected layoff. In 8 of those times, he's been able to secure a new position in 3 months or less. This is approximately 67% faster than the average job seeker. Typically, the average job seeker obtains an equivalent or better position in 6 to 9 months. His presentation will share the tips and lessons learned for conducting a successful job search in today's job market. Please welcome Bryon for his presentation, Engineer Your Career to Achieve Job Search Success.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me just get it to the front.
Brett, does he have this thing?
Yes. Okay. And make sure you're.
Yeah, turn up. Good. So is that the clicker?
Yeah. Make sure.
Oh.
Okay.
Backing up. Thank you. All right, cool. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, which I wrote. Thank you. That's good.
Thank you for that.
All right. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really thankful. Some of you have come out. It's always not fun speaking to an empty room. So forgive me a little bit. I'm getting over a little case of laryngitis. Okay. So my voice might be a little bit raspy, and I hope it doesn't crack like puberty or something like that. But anyway, so yes, this is my presentation. The pun is very obvious in that my new job, my new role is with the Engineering Career Assistance Center at the University of Texas. As some of you may know, University of Texas, a big school right here in Austin, and each of the colleges, each of the schools have their own Career Assistance Center. Okay, and there's a small team in our college for engineering. It's a small team of 7 people, which I am the second newest member because we just hired another career advisor last week. So it's great. It's great. So this pretty much, I think, summarizes what Shannon just said. The one thing that I want to point out, and because I've got my boss's permission to be here today, is that at Cockrell, the Engineering Career Assistance Center is split into 2 halves. There's the student advisory side, right, where we have several career advisors that work with the students directly on interview skills, resume writing, cover letters, that sort of thing, coaching them along that. And then there's the employer relations side, okay, and that's my role, okay. I mean, formally I'm called an employer engagement, which is the best term we could use because HR told us I can't call myself employer relations because they are only employer relations. But that's UT bureaucracy for you. So I focus on developing our relationships with the employers and working and encouraging them to hire UT engineers. And my 2 big things during the year is we have, just for the engineering school, career expos, job fairs, twice a year in the fall and in the spring. Okay? Other thing I want to say is that I want to make this presentation interactive. I just don't want to be speaking at you, so please feel free to raise your hand, ask a question, and you want to get a good dialogue going, right? And that's how I like to roll. So any questions about this? Yes, go ahead. Okay, I will respond. I love LinkedIn. Okay, all right. Yay, sounds good. All right, let's get going. All right, so this is the summary of what I've affectionately called my 5-step plan for job search success. All right, and my presentation, should be no surprise, is that I'm going to get into each one of these bullets as we go forward. But just to give you that landscape, my first one, step number 1, is get your mind right. Okay? And this is the hardest and most difficult step, and I'm going to tell you more about that, right? But bottom line is that you as an individual, starting your job search, dealing with potentially, feelings of failure and rejection. You've just been laid off. You're depressed. You feel ashamed. All these kind of things, right? It's a challenge, right? And bottom line is you got to, find the time, and I'll talk more about this, to kind of get over that hump and get a positive mindset going in terms of how you approach your job search, all right? Get good, all right? That's where you improve yourself, all right? That's where you develop skills. So you use this time when you're, not working full time to do developing, yourself, training and certifications and so forth. Get known, okay? This is what I like to call the marketing step, all right? As Shannon has mentioned, we are all in a job search. We are sales and marketing of our own selves, all right? So that step is where you work on defining your brand, build a personal marketing plan, which very critical document I'll talk about more, updating your resume, updating LinkedIn, getting biz cards, and most importantly, and that's why I put it in bold with double exclamation marks, right? Network, 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 okay? And we'll talk more about that. Get busy, okay? This is a job. Finding a job is a job, okay? So you got to be able to treat it like that, get yourself scheduled, get yourself in a good routine, and dedicate, the hours, the 30 to 40 hours, for myself, sometimes it was 50, to, get that job next, all right? And then finally, get paid. This is the fun stuff, all right? In terms of, we'll talk about, compensation evaluation, negotiation, that sort of thing. All righty. Again, ask questions away as I go, all right? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned business cards. I'm curious.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just, hey, scan my LinkedIn QR code. What's your
True.
perspective on that?
That's true, and that's fine. I'm comfortable with that. I have to admit, I'm old school, all right? And I was going to mention this at the later point, but I might as well mention it now. What I did is I simply made a simple business card, right, on my printer at home, all right? And I just used a little heavier stock paper, right? It's not that much different, but at least it has a little bit more heft to it. And I kept it real simple, just my name, my phone number, my email address. I'm in Austin, so people know that, and my LinkedIn link. And I use it frequently, in terms of networking events. And I even have, it's been really helpful in terms of traveling and so forth, right? Because they ask you for your information, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here it is. Cool, right? So it's very handy, and it's cheap, all right? So that's my feeling on it. Okay, let's talk about getting your mind right. All right. So as some of you may have noted that 8 out of those 9 times I was able to get a job within 3 months or less. Now, the one time that it took me very long, essentially 11 months and 11 days, okay, almost a year, was back in 2017, okay? And that was I really struggled. Again, it was a layoff situation, totally out of, a layoff situation, totally out of the blue. It really affected me personally. So I wasted about 6 months of my time struggling with these feelings, right? Of failure, rejection, depression, shame, unworthiness, okay? So tell me, how many people have experienced that, right? Okay. Yeah, yes, that's true, it is. Yep, it is a necessary step. And you just hit my bullet point in terms of number 1, and I'll get to that in a second, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, was it more to do with interviews that you were more concerned about during your job search, or was it other emotions?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things, right? I was struggling with this, and the self-sabotaging was definitely with interviews, because fortunately for me, I'm a pretty decent writer, and so I could put together a good resume and put together a good cover letter, and and I was getting some interviews. But my problem was because my mind wasn't quite right, and I had all these self-doubts, all right. I kept showing up as the old guy nobody would ever want to hire, right? I got so twisted in my logic is that I would never want to work for a company that was stupid enough to hire me. That was my thinking. You're right. Does that answer your question? Cool. Other questions about this situation? All right, so let's move on to the good stuff and take on what this young woman said at the top, that it's okay, right? Take time to grieve your job loss, all right? And some of it, could be loss of identity, because a lot of people associate themselves with their job, right? And when they lose that, they lose, a lot of their own self-image, right? People struggle with that. So, but it's okay. The thing is, what I recommend is that do it for a time. For some people, it might be a day or two. For some, it might be a week or two. Some people, it might be a month, all right? But I recommend, let's not make it more than a month, right? Because you got to get going, right? You got to get back in there and get back in the market, right? But take that reflection time, right? And do a candid self-assessment, all right? Understand, look at, very critically, look at your strengths and weaknesses, look at your interests, and you will get a copy of this presentation. So you're fine there, right, Shannon? Yeah.
It'll be in the newsletter.
Yeah, it'll be in the newsletter, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you want to take a picture, go ahead. So you do that self-assessment, right? You look at, what did you enjoy about work? What did you not enjoy about work, right? And help formulate that direction, right? Defining yourself, defining your brand. And this marketing plan, which I'm going to talk about shortly in the Get Known section, I believe, is a very critical document, right? And it's part of that, let's call it that healing process. Going through the exercise of building a marketing plan for yourself will help you move into that next phase and set yourself up for a successful job search, okay? And I'm going to be hammering that point on it a little bit more. Get active, right? Do things that are fun. Exercise. Me, I like to meditate, I pray, I get out of the house, get away from the computer, right? Socialize, and in a fun way. And then I put this in brackets, is that, just socialize. Don't make any pressure in terms of networking, but that will allow you to sort of ease into the idea of networking. Okay? Listen, I love music, so I listen to music. Have fun. Do things that you enjoy. Go to the movies. All right, that sort of thing. And bottom line, once you think about this self-assessment, and you think about building your market plan, and think about what you want to do next, right? That reflection. Don't be afraid to take a risk. A calculated one. Each of us has different risk tolerances, right? So to your level of comfort, take a risk. And don't be afraid to make a pivot. I think this young woman back here is making a pivot in terms of going into a new job sort of thing. And I did as well in my most recent job. I made a big pivot going from private sector to public sector. Okay? Again, questions? Good. Oh, was there? Sure.
Pivot from public to private.
Yes.
Private to public sector.
Right.
What are one or two, three things, insights that you have elaborated? Obviously, it's been
Okay. So I'll give you a very personal answer to this one. So going through a couple of things that I learned in this process, right? My previous resume and my previous cover letter were very private sector focused, right? My role was in consulting, a practice director, so it was all about sales, right? Selling consulting work. It was all about project management. It was all about growing the business, revenue, profits, all that sort of thing, right? In public sector, very different, It's a mission-focused thing, all right? In terms of whatever potential, private institution. For me, it was education. I also applied to a charity. I applied to Goodwill, right? So I had to revise my resume and revise my cover letter to include more mission-focused, right, language versus the private sector business-focused language, right? And I'll tell you right now, spoiler alert, I used ChatGPT to help me do that. Okay? And it was great. It was a very educational experience for me. And it worked, okay? So I'm a big proponent. I'm a big proponent of that. But you have to, again, this goes back to the marketing. You have to understand your audience, right? And recognize, and I didn't change my job titles. I didn't change the things that I do. I just reframed them with different language, right? And I highlighted my volunteer experience, right? Because as I said, I was pursuing a role as a career coach in public sector. And personally, I have done, let's call it career coaching informally right here for the past 8 years, kind of thing. And I also mentored students in Round Rock ISD, where I was a mentor for students at risk. So I highlighted those things. I brought them to the top of my resume, okay, as opposed to the bottom. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, let's continue. Okay, so now, excuse me, get good. All right. As I said, this is the part where you use this time to improve your skills and yourself. And I gave you some recommendations here of some books that I found very useful. You know, no surprise. The top one, The Unwritten Rules of a Highly Effective Job Search. That, you know, arguably is the Bible of our SWAT teams, right? Everybody who joins a SWAT team is recommended to read that book. And it's, you know, it's been almost an institution in terms of, you know, a critical manual and hands-on guide around doing a job search. Steve Dalton, the 2 books by him, he was a career coach that I saw online at a presentation. I forget what organization did it, but they had like a 2-day virtual conference, right? So PowerPoint after PowerPoint for like 8 hours a day, right? But he was good. And his 2 books I've read and I would also recommend, okay? Getting to Yes. Steve recommended that book, so I picked that one up as well. It's all about negotiation, okay, and based on a Harvard project. And what's interesting about this Getting to Yes, it's not just about business negotiation, right? Yeah, you know, trying to get the best deal back and forth and so forth. It broadens it and talks about we negotiate all through life. Okay, it's not just business. We negotiate with our spouse where we're going to eat or who's going to cook dinner, you know, that sort of thing. So it has a lot of tools and techniques for just general life negotiations. Question? Maybe an optimist, and then, you know, and end up usually saying, "Okay, yes, dear," right? Sort of thing. But hey, give it a shot. It might work. It might work. If you take some of his techniques, it kind of reframes the process of negotiation, right? So that you get, you know, that you know, idyllic win-win, right? Okay, the first 90 days. That's a book that, again, I use to great effect. This book talks about that critical first 90 days when you get a new job or a new role. Okay, so that's why I put it at the end. So if you get a job, I highly recommend reading that book. It's an easy read, and it had great impact because, again, you know, I've changed jobs 9 times, right? So one job that I went to in 2018, okay, I wasn't aware of this book, right? And I just, you know, did my best and fumbled along and so forth. But long story short, I ended up after about 18 months or so realizing, yeah, this wasn't a right fit for me. That wasn't very good. I didn't do certain things to make my transition and make myself successful. So then I got this book and read it, and I applied it. I applied the principles when I got my next job, which was Power School that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and it worked amazingly well. Okay, in terms of, it took a whole new approach in terms of, you know, setting up with my manager. I came in with my 90-day plan, right, in terms of how we're going to start. I had questions for him in terms of, okay, who should I meet? Who should I talk to? Who are the, you know, the gurus within our organization in terms of the technology? You know, who are the wise Yodas in terms of navigating the political environment, right? And I had one-on-one interviews with these key people based on his recommendation, and that really made a difference in terms of my orientation, all right? And you get lots of great tips like that in that book, so I highly recommend it. And you can get it, you know, I'm frugal, I'm economical. So you can get these books used on Amazon, get them at half-price books, and some, like the Steve Dalton books, you can get free at the library, right? I hadn't been in a public library for about 10 years, but I went there to get the book. Okay, go ahead, question?
You can also check out books online.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a library.
Correct. Yeah, and at the library I found, they do audiobooks as well and fun stuff like that. So, yep, I absolutely recommend it. I now have 2 library cards because there are 2 different library systems in my area. Anyway, that's that. Take courses. I think I've mentioned that earlier in terms of, online things, your role and desired interests. So, Khan Academy, LinkedIn Learning, there's some of them will have some cost, but it's usually not too prohibitive, right? Udemy Academy, all right? Question back here?
Actually, I recommend definitely the courses, especially if you're looking at job application or the job requirements. Like you may have one type of skill,
Right,
but they're using some other program. that
right.
Do anything. I use DataCamp because there's a lot of programming,
Mhm.
database tech, analysis, things like that. But I mean, I got a job because they're using like one software, never heard of it. Went to just one day, some paid free trial with some places. You
Yeah.
just get going.
Yeah.
That way you can talk to it, or you can say, I know this software. It's easy just to transfer in skills.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And I mean, I heard earlier somebody, a little bit of a fun thing to do in terms of going to the customer website, and looking at whether they're doing a webinar on the software or something like that, or potentially, getting a demonstration and that sort of thing in a casual way to learn a little about it and at least get the bullet points and get the highlights in terms of, hey, this is how this operates, right? And then, if you want to take the course or develop training around it, if you really want to become, a specialist in it, then, obviously the course is the way to go.
Definitely check out YouTube. There's
Yeah.
tons of stuff.
Yes, YouTube as well. Okay, great. I love it. Making my presentation greater. So just keep firing the questions and the comments. And then certifications, I think everybody's kind of familiar with that. I just highlighted a couple too. I come from a tech background. So, Microsoft certifications, networking, project management. I think somebody was looking at that. A PMP, kind of thing. It takes work, but it is valuable. It is valuable. That's why I said marketable certifications. Salesforce does a lot of free training on that. Any other questions, comments on here? All right, so let's get good. All right, now, big one. I got about 3 or 4 slides on this one. Get known, okay? So I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but like I said, you'll get the copy of this. And this is my 1-page marketing plan, or also referred to as a job search plan. I think that's the terminology that the SWAT team uses these days, but I'm kind of old school, so I just say marketing plan because that's what you're doing, all right? And basically, I think it is the most critical document you can create, all right? As I said earlier, doing the exercise, doing a thoughtful, deliberate exercise to create your marketing plan, right, will help you, move out of that doldrums, depression, sadness kind of phase. It helped me, and it sets the table. It sets your roadmap for your job search. Okay, so that's why it's so critical. You get a good marketing plan, it launches you into the other things, because from this you build your resume, your cover letters, etc. Give you an example. So, I come up with a personal objective. We play with that. I like to write, wordsmith it, and so forth in terms of. Now this, just to put it in context, this was a marketing plan I built in 2020, okay, during the pandemic, because I got laid off from Epicor like in May, all right, of 2020. And so I use this as my tool to get my next job, which was at Power School, again in a software company, technology. So just to give you context, because I thought, given there are a lot of tech folks in here, I thought you'd appreciate this more than my career coaching marketing plan. Anyway, so you come up with a position statement. That's like your 30-second elevator pitch in terms of how you would describe yourself briefly to colleagues or potential. Question?
More like a comment.
Sure.
On the positioning statement or like your branding, I didn't have a really good one on my resume.
Mhm.
I went to a job fair
Mhm.
last week. I was at the workforce, and one of the gentlemen there said, just go to ChatGPT or whatever and say, like, what is a good
Mm-hmm. Sure.
got 11 years of blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And it gave me something, I'm like, okay.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love ChatGPT. I didn't use it for this job search because it wasn't around at that time, but in my most recent one, which was earlier this year, yeah, I definitely leveraged it, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Okay. So positioning statement, then competencies, right? And what I do, I'm a tech guy, I'm a software guy, I'm a math guy, so I like numbers and I like to organize myself, very much so. So I group my competencies into the key areas of my role: customer success, management, and technology, right? And then listed those competencies. And then this, you will see, was I used, slightly different framing and ordering for my skills section on my resume, okay? Then you target market and companies. Oh, question? Yes.
Is that, are you talking about things that you're thinking in terms of metrics?
Well, customer success, I don't know if you're familiar with, is a business jargon, business term. Like have whole departments within software companies that are called customer success, okay? And what, yeah, it's focused in a software company. It's a department focused on building a relationship with the customer after the sale is done, and maintaining that relationship so that you get the customer to renew their subscription to your software. Yeah, no, it's external, type function. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So things like customer relationship development, account management, those are the things that fall under the customer success purview. Okay. Other questions? There? Okay. Let me continue. So then think about, and again, this is where you do that in reflection. Where do I want to work? What type of work do I want to do? Okay. So geographic area, the types of industries that you want to work in, the size of the organization, small, big, startup, whatever. The type of culture. For me, I really wanted kind of a entrepreneurial, innovative, collaborative, collegial, fun culture. That's what I was looking for, because I like to have fun when I work. And so then again, I organized it, right, after I had that definition and targeted companies, and I organized it in different categories, right? And you can do this as well when you build your marketing plan. So I said, okay, these are the small business startup ones that I might be interested in. These are what I call the mid-size innovators, so leading companies, forward-thinking, entrepreneurial, innovative, right? And then these are the big dogs, the industry leaders, the consulting firms, and so forth. And then finally, the really big dogs, right? The large tech companies that, there would be opportunities for, like the Googles and the Microsofts and so forth, all right? Does this make sense to people? Yeah, cool. Let me see. Oh, okay, so that's the marketing plan. Update your resume, LinkedIn. Let me make a couple of comments there. As I said, I'm a big LinkedIn lover. A big fan of it. Like to use it and leverage it, and I could spend a whole hour just talking about how you can effectively use LinkedIn in your job search, but rest assured I'm not going to do that. I'll only just make 2 tips for you. One is try to have at least chronicle and job title consistency between your resume and LinkedIn, because recruiters will look at both, all right? And so you want to make sure there's consistency. But it doesn't have to be an absolute match, right? LinkedIn, you have the freedom to put a lot more detail in that, and feel free to do that, okay? In terms of your work, the about section, I could throw stats at you. I think, and maybe Charles might know this one. I think it's like 60% you get more views if you have a picture on your LinkedIn profile, something like that. If you use the about section to describe yourself, that's also a very popular section that recruiters and hiring managers look at. And another tip on LinkedIn is use what I call the 3-2-1 routine, okay? And that means every week, comment at least 3 times, share something twice, and post at least once, okay? And if you do that activity that activity is going to increase your likelihood of being found on the LinkedIn algorithms. Because when the LinkedIn does searches, when recruiters are using searches, the algorithm looks for active members at the top, all right? So if you follow that 3-2-1 routine weekly, that will boost your chances of being found. Okay, so 3, comment, all right, and make not just a like, make an actual comment on something, right, on somebody else's post, all right, words.
Not just those little.
Yeah, not just the little icons. No, that doesn't count. It has to be a comment, right, that you make.
What if you see that somebody had an anniversary?
Yeah.
And then you say like, hey.
Yeah, that'll work. Correct. Exactly right. Exactly right.
I highly recommend using the @ symbol if
Yeah.
you have any connection whatsoever to the person that made the comment. LinkedIn will
Oh, thank you.
drive somebody that made the comment to your feed. When you use that @ symbol and you tag them in it, it makes you a lot more active in LinkedIn's algorithm.
Number 2, please.
That's correct. Okay. So, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes. So number 2 was sharing, right? So, and that is, if you like a post, right, you can repost or you can share it to your network and you just make a little introductory comment, say, hey, this is a great idea, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Or things that you're following and you like and you share.
Correct. And then number 1 is make a post yourself, right? And it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be difficult. What I did is I just made a habit of doing posts. And I don't know if this statistically is correct, but I thought Monday mornings was the time I typically put the post at the beginning of the week, so that people, have the whole week to kind of see it and so forth. I don't know if it's statistically the right, but I kind of got the impression that was a good time to make a post. And I would do things, sometimes I'd do something simple. I'd find a business quote that I liked, right? And I'd make a little graphic and post that. I mean, one of my favorites is, intelligence is not what you know, it's what you do when you don't know. All right? And I just posted that as something. And I did it, with a nice little picture or something like that. Sorry, question?
Well, I heard Tuesday day, like noon hour that
Okay, well, that's good. So getting in on Monday, you beat the crowd.
You should play around with
Yeah, sure.
retail, because the reality is that there's analytics associated with all of that.
Yeah.
So based on the analytics, you can tell what's doing better days.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is great for analytics. It'll tell you, how many impressions your post has made and so forth, right? What's being viewed and not viewed. You can track, all your friends who like and so forth. And I'm very active, so if somebody likes my post, I like them saying, thank you for liking.
Based on your Monday posts, what were the analytics?
It was pretty good. I mean, this was a while ago, like it was about 5 or 6 years ago. But, it worked out. And I learned from them. I learned posts that worked well and others. And I found, actually, the more personal posts had more impact, when I talked about a personal thing that was kind of going on. So, yeah. Okay, so everybody understand the 3-2-1 routine then? Clear? Okay. Make business cards, as I mentioned. Network. And a couple of stats that'll help, solidify this. Reality is, 75 to 80% of jobs are found through networking, okay? So that's where you need to focus your time, right? Don't spend all day randomly submitting applications, online, right? And don't, if you can, don't submit blind apps, right? Try to find somebody within that organization, establish a connection, right? So that when you do submit that app, they can be a reference, they can be a referral, okay? They can, tell the hiring manager, hey, this is a great person, that is, wants a job here. Please give their resume some additional consideration. That's, yes.
Yeah, that helps out a lot too. Because
Yeah.
Your LinkedIn, you may just do the job, what you're good at, how that works. But if you see someone in HR and that company posts that same job title, that's one person you can talk to.
Right.
And then depending what department it's in, go to the people search and then say, all right, who's in that department? Maybe just introduce yourself, a quick message, and that gets you through HR,
Right.
ATS system.
Exactly. The idea is you want to beat the ATS system, and the best way to beat that is making a personal connection within the organization. Okay? And the other reality is that there's the hidden job market. Approximately 75% of jobs available in the marketplace are not posted online. All right? And the only way you get to them is networking. All right? So there's a cost benefit of where you spend your time, folks. All right? That's my point.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
That's too good.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's 3 comments a week, 2 is.
Yeah, 3 comments a week, 2 shares, and 1 post.
Gotcha.
Okay? All right?
One question.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Does anyone know what's a good way to do an e-business card? I think you were referring to the QR code. Is there anyone, any?
I mean, I was referring, when LinkedIn, or you do a connection, and you're trying to share it with that QR code. That's how
Do you know how to use the app in LinkedIn, the QR code?
Yes. So it's just add an image in and put in the back of your business card.
Or use Dot.
There's also an app called Wave, which
Mhm.
can include any website information or anything like that, as multiple places you can send.
I know back in the business sides, there was some type of cards where you just tap and you just share your contact
Mhm.
card for that matter. So,
Yeah, that's very true. You can do it electronically. I think you had a question. Is that correct? Or
Was that the last bullet?
yes.
I thought there was a legal requirement to post a job for 2 weeks minimum.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on that.
I'm wondering where the
yeah.
65% came
Pardon?
from, because that may very well be true, but I'm wondering where that came from, because
Yeah.
I thought companies were under a legal obligation to post it.
Now, there's 2 things. Let me qualify this. This was my job search in 2020. So I can say this was very true in 2020. Now, it's quite possible, because there have some things changed, like salaries being posted and so forth, that have happened in more recent years. So there may be an obligation, a stronger obligation to post jobs. But I still feel, the internal network, hiring managers, they don't want to go through all the problems with HR and so forth. They have an opportunity within their organization. They want to go through all the bureaucracy of creating an appropriate job spec and job definition and all that work, because they don't want to do that work, right? But they know there's an opportunity within their organization. Okay, so that's my thought on there. Any other questions here? Okay, let's move on. We're halfway through. I got about 12 slides. We're okay for time so far? Okay, cool. All right, continue on getting known. All right. Oh, yeah, let me write this. Okay. Question for you. What is the purpose of a resume? Very good. Absolutely correct. All right. To get an interview. You nailed it. All right. That's what your resume is to do. It's a tool, okay? It's a marketing and sales tool, right? It's supposed to generate interest in the hiring manager reading your resume so that they want to talk to you, right? And a resume, it's supposed to be, what I like to say, it's supposed to be a movie trailer, not the whole movie, all right? You don't want to put your whole life in your resume. You only want to focus on what's relevant, okay, in terms of the jobs you talk about, the accomplishments that you have. And every resume, and I really firmly believe this, every resume for every position you apply to, you must tweak your resume at some point, okay? Sometimes there'll be a lot of tweaking, like I had to do when I pivoted to career coaching, and other times it might be minor tweaking, all right? But make sure you have a tailored resume for each job that you apply to, okay? So a couple of things. I know there's a lot of markups here, and again, when you get the presentation, you might be able to read it a little bit better. But let me run you through some of the tips and techniques I used in terms of resume writing. And again, I'm not claiming to be an expert here, and you talk to 50 career coaches, you'll probably get 50 different answers in terms of what the right resume is. So it comes down to a matter of personal style. I'm just going to relate to you what has worked for me, okay? So first thing I do, and as opposed to my name, big and bold, right, is that I put the title of the job I'm applying to, okay, for that particular position. And that does 2 things, right? It makes it easier for the resume reader to relate me, to the job, because sometimes they see that resume, may not even see it before they're sitting down in front of you for the interview, right? And also, psychologically, it associates my name with the role, all right? So then you have, your profile section, right? Which is a kind of an abbreviated, condensed version of that positioning statement, right? And what I like to do there is I like to make that personalized, right? And make it something memorable, make it something unique. You want to be able to stand out. So for me, I always start with award-winning client service, blah, 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 all right? Because that is one of my strengths, right? And again, another tip is that this top section here, right? This third or so, in terms of your profile, your skills section, as I mentioned before, and career highlights, I'll talk about more than that. You need to make sure whatever you're claiming in that section, you support it down, okay, in your detail, in terms of your professional experience or volunteer experience and so forth. So I highlighted so you could see, hey, okay, I won an award here, I won an award here, I won an award here, sort of thing. So it's consistent, right, with me making that claim that I'm award-winning. All right, the next section, I use that profile summary to lead into my skills section, which I said was on the marketing plan. And I change it and I arrange it and I change the wording and I try to match the wording of the skills that are listed in the... Hang on just a sec here. Let me just put that back. Hopefully that's still working okay. All right. Where was I? Yes, so I use that to match up as closely as I can to the specific job requirements and qualifications in the job description, all right? And this is very effective in terms of getting you through the ATS, in terms of matching the scoring of your resume against the job description. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Now, this triangle here, I call the golden triangle, right? That is typically where a reader will focus their attention. As they're scanning a resume, right, they'll look across the first row and then down the first column. Because in North America, we read right to left, sort of thing. Sorry, left to right. So make sure your key information, the most important stuff, is in that golden triangle, okay? Career highlights. This is something I like to do. I take my bullets in here, and I may expand upon them in terms of my roles, and I highlight what I think is going to be the most attractive, the most exciting, the most interesting thing for this hiring manager for this position, right? And also, you'll see, again, I'm a numbers guy, and so I'm a big proponent of this. Numbers are sticky, okay? When you put them in the resume, they stand out. They captures people's attention. If you can quantify your achievements, numerically, that's golden. That's golden, okay? So what you do, and again, the whole thing about this being a marketing tool is basically their message is, hey, Mr. Hiring or Mrs. Hiring Manager, I did all these fabulous things in my past. I can do the same for you and more. That's the message you're trying to convey, right? So again, quantification, getting down to professional experience section. This is a little visual graphical thing. So when I was applying for this particular job back in 2020, I had the issue, and many of you may have it, put your hand up if you did. I had employment gaps, right? Periods of unemployment, right? That I wanted to downplay, okay? Don't lie about them, but I wanted to downplay them. So what I did is that I took the date of my period of employment, all right? Sometimes you'll see in resumes, typically you see it over here, okay? But visually, me smushing it over here and leaving the month off and just putting it in numbers, right? People just gloss over it and don't worry about it, right? A little visual reading trick sort of thing, right? So I don't get as many questions about, what happened during this month and that month, in 2017 or whatever, okay? Just a little tip. I also, for the companies, I typically put a little one-sentence describing what the organization is, right? Because a lot of the companies, the hiring manager may not know. And so that gives them context in terms of what I did, all right? And then, again, all your bullet points, keep them simple, 2 or 3 bullet points per job, with the exception of there, and I'll speak to that in a moment. And always lead with an action verb, all right? And we all know, high school grammar, led, implemented, achieved, contributed, sold, received, or recruited, hired. Oh, and one of my favorite, revolutionized. Okay, so you got to hype it up. You got to hype it up with action words in each of your descriptions. And again, quantify your achievement as best you can. All right. Go ahead. Question.
Do you play with fonts, 11, 10?
Yeah. I did. I know this is a small font. I think I landed on 11 or 10 maybe on this one to get it all in. And again, I'll go back. Again, career coaches, you'll have a lot of debates. Oh, should my resume be 1 page? Should it be 2 pages? And so forth. And I don't bother in terms of getting into that debate, 1 or 2 pages. What I will say, my rule of thumb, is if you've got more than 10, 12 years of experience, you're likely going to go to a 2-page resume because there's information there. But you're not going to go more back than 15 years because after 15 years, your experience becomes kind of irrelevant, to the hiring manager most of the time. Unless, of course, there's something back, in your 20-year history that you want to highlight that is relevant, then you might include it in your primary section, as you can see, chronological. And this is another thing, again, this is just my preference, and I know Charles, he stepped out, will agree with this. I do not recommend doing functional resumes, okay? Stick to chronological. Because the reality is, when you do a functional resume, the recruiter says, okay, what's this person trying to hide? That's a reaction that 90% of the recruiters do. They're looking for chronological resumes from your most recent job through your past, right? And if you vary from that, they get suspicious and they throw you out. Go ahead.
So I have a question. If you have like a skill set that you haven't worked on in like years, whatever that achievement that you did will be one of my career highlights.
Right.
But they're not going to see it anywhere else in any prior job because unfortunately it's been that long.
Okay.
But at least I'm focusing on what was the result, the metrics, and what I did back then.
Yeah. So I'd pop it into the career highlight section, right? And I make a reference to the job, the company I worked in at that point, all right?
But if you make a reference to that job and you look at and you don't see that job listed anywhere.
Then that's not good. So you have to have it listed. Or for me, it was volunteer experience that I put into my highlights for my career coaching. So there wasn't a reference to the job.
It's been my experience that when they see that, they care about it, then they'll ask you.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
explain it to them at that point.
Exactly. You want to generate interest. Remember, tease them. It's a trailer, right? Go ahead.
So, for example, if in your career highlights, the increased services margins was actually related to global services, you would just put global services in there from your prior.
You mean the company here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the
Yeah.
prior
That's right.
experience.
Right. I took the bullet point out of that part of my standard resume, right? And that's what I say, why you tweak it each time when you do it. You look at, your full resume, which might run 3 pages if you got a lot of job history, but you get it down to 2, and you take the key achievements within that role and you put them into the highlight section.
I think I didn't make myself
Oh,
clear.
sorry.
What I'm saying is, to his point about if you want to hit on a prior experience.
Yes.
Can you still put your career highlight and say from open text?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's why I highlighted the prior experience.
Okay.
So I took my resume back 15 years at the time, right? Most, because again, this was done in 2020. But for other jobs that I wanted to highlight and not put a time frame on them, I created this prior experience includes section. And I played with, the number of jobs that I put in here. I just put the title and the position. And what I did is I bolded the companies because, again, this is another sort of tip from a formatting perspective. Don't overdo it with the bold, okay? Be strategic in terms of how you use it and be consistent in how you use it to make those things stand out. So for me, these companies are big, consulting firms. So I was applying for a job. So them seeing Deloitte and Price Waterhouse and OpenText, a big software company, was important, all right? And then I just did a summary, a quick bullet points of some of the achievements related to those prior experiences, all right?
Does anybody ever get to ask you that, because Waterloo, Canada?
Yes, that comes up. That comes up every once in a while. That's true. Yes, I am. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was like the second round interview, actually with the UT job. He said, "So you're from Canada?" I said, "Yeah." I started, talking about, hey, right? Anyway, and also again, making it personal, making it memorable, and also a good conversation starter for me is I put in, this, that I have an improv comedy certification, right? From Second City when I lived in Detroit, right? And, that catches people's attention. I remember, literally, walking into an interview and the hiring manager just pulls out my resume and is looking at it and says, Bryon, before we get started, what is this certification thing all about, right? That's a nice, it's a nice little icebreaker kind of thing. And I said, again, some people in the summary, again, you want to put something unique, something memorable, and some people use humor. I know a career coach in his summary, he talked about stuff, and then his last line, a little bullet point said, beat Mark Zuckerberg at kickball in 2025, or something like that, right? That obviously caught people's eye, right? Let me see if I talked about everything there. Sure.
So if there's a gap, I took a sabbatical.
Right.
Should I just leave it with specifics of my currently right now, this was May 2020, and you're already in October, and you have a gap.
Yeah, I don't know if you were here when I mentioned this about the date and the gaps, because I was dealing with that as well. So the thing I did visually is typically, your time period, a lot of people will spell out the month and the year and so forth, right? And put it over here, all right? What that does is that draws attention to the time period. So what I did is I smushed it over here, changed it to numbers, and so they just kind of gloss over it. Now, the other part that you can do in terms of dealing with gaps, sometimes, if it's a significant gap, address it. You put it on your resume or you put it in your LinkedIn saying, okay, sabbatical or whatever, caring, there's a nice term, Shannon, for it. Caregiving, yeah, for a parent or a child for a period of time, something like that. Show something that you were doing during that period, okay? And you can put it on your LinkedIn, or you can put it on both your LinkedIn and your resume if you feel it needs to address it. So best way is to address it up front as opposed to getting asked for it.
Yeah, so two good things in that thing would be to, if you're doing a certification course or something like that,
Yeah.
then, I have to take time for that. Also, he's got volunteer experience. If you volunteer somewhere, and especially if it's with the tools that you have in your skill set, more like, you call up and talk to somebody like, oh, we have a 10-meter run, 10K run. Like, well, that's great. I'm willing to hand out waters, but I'm also a business analyst, and so if you need any help with any of your documentation, blah, blah, blah. And then they will usually be shocked that you're willing to share your time and your experience for free of a very detailed, specific nature. So just ways that can help with that block of time.
And again, two other things, you'll see that with the exception of that, I only talked about years as opposed to months and years, right? And that's one of the way. And then the volunteer experience on my career coaching resume, I definitely put, that I volunteered at Launchpad Job Club and all the great stuff that I did there. Put it here, and I highlighted there, right? That sort of thing. So, use what you got and highlight it appropriately. Question?
So I'm curious, the career highlights in the summary,
Yeah.
Is that skill section crossed out? Like, what is your...
No, that's not crossed out. I don't know if you missed my comment here. I'm highlighting. I use my positioning statement, an abbreviated version of my positioning statement from my marketing plan, to create that, and I use it as an introduction. So the last line of this positioning statement is a solutions-oriented player coach with the following skills. Boom, right? And then I list the skills. And again, it will vary. Some people might have 2 columns, some people might have 3, some people might have 2 rows, some people might have 5. I know I put a lot in there, so that's why I went to a 11-point or 10-point font to get it all in. But this triangle, this golden triangle here, it's not crossing out. It's highlighting that when somebody is reviewing your resume and reading through it, because the reality is, recruiters, they spend max 20 seconds looking at a resume.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, max. That's max, right?
Right.
It's usually 10 to 15.
It's like,
Right.
6 to 8.
Yeah, so you need to catch them. You need to catch them. And so what they do, because, we're humans in North America, and we read left to right, in your skill section, this golden triangle is what they will typically read, right? They'll read across the first row and then down the first column. Okay? Any other questions about resume formatting? Oh, more? Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Wait, so if you are in the computer field
Yes.
and you have a long history of it,
Right.
you would switch the dates with the title. I'm assuming you would do the same thing.
Yeah, I did that to sort of brush over the employment gaps. That's why I did that.
But
Yeah.
say you do have a solid
Yeah.
working history.
Yeah, then,
but very
yeah,
small.
yeah, then you can highlight them if you want. Absolutely. Move the dates back to, this side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't cut yours down to like 15 years instead of like say going back 30 years?
No, I would definitely keep it to not go back further than 15, approximately. Okay? Because after that, it becomes irrelevant to the hiring manager.
Yeah, notice
Yeah.
there are no dates for when he was in school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to date yourself there. I saw a question back here. Go ahead. Can you speak up a little?
I've seen where some AI would want to change your formatting, or they
Uh-huh.
change your formatting to where they have like a sideline.
Uh-huh.
You can put career highlights, achievements, skills in that section. Is that formatting ATS?
I don't know about that particularly. What I can say is my formatting here is fairly simple, and it goes through the ATS very well. And when I upload the resume, it extracts the information because your data is where they expect to find it. Okay, in terms of using the titles, right, and just simple lines, separating. It's not fancy.
In the portal, there's an ATS, there's a link that you can go to, upload your resume, and it'll show you what it looks like to an ATS. So it's
Yeah.
really helpful.
Okay. Was there another question, or I think we should be moving on? I'm conscious of the time here. Okay. All right. All right. Cover letter. Again, this is my personal opinion here, but I think cover letters are making a comeback, personally, right? In effectiveness, and they are a very good tool, a selling tool, for yourself, right? So a couple of tips. Personalize it, right? Here, find a person, a hiring manager, or somebody more senior in that hiring chain to address your letter to, okay? Really work hard to do that. And you don't have to work too hard, because sometimes you can use LinkedIn and even ChatGPT helped me. I said, okay, who is the director of the career services at UT in the College of Cockrell? Boom, and it gave me the name. Right? So again, this was back in 2020. I directed it to the senior vice president because that was the only name I could find. But I knew, he was the top guy in the professional services, right? And I scanned my signature, so it makes it a little bit personal there. So that's personalization. Use bullet points, right, to make it easy to digest, right? And use bolding. Yeah, I know it's hard to see, but these highlighted parts are bold on the letter. So again, if somebody's scanning it, just reading through this quickly, right? If they just read the bullet points that are bolded, they will get the message. Hey, Greg, you're the president. I'm going to improve your customer success. I'm going to increase sales. I'm going to grow your organization. I'm going to strengthen your project delivery. Boom. Let's talk. Okay? that is what you want to do. These ones is ask for the interview. Let's discuss. Okay? I look forward to speaking with you soon. Okay? Be assertive about it. And yeah, a little flattery doesn't hurt either. Okay, sort of thing where I said, hey, Power School has achieved outstanding leadership in the educational ecosystem. I'm very impressed. Right? Let's talk. Okay, continue. All right, ChatGPT, great. It's been a great aid for me in this job search in terms of getting my new role. It's great for researching companies, doing a first pass in terms of writing resumes, cover letters, preparing interview questions. And here I just gave you a sample of some of the prompts I used that generated some very good information. Again, always have to qualify. AI is not perfect, and it's going to make mistakes, and it's sometimes going to give you stupid stuff, right? So you need to review it, right? Don't take it as gospel, right? But in general, it was very, very helpful to me. It was very, very helpful to me. So for example, I fed it the job, the URL to that job posting. I attached my resume because you can attach documents, pictures, and so forth. And I said, compare the job description and score me out of 100%, right? Which is what the ATS system would do. And it would give me a score. And if I got below 85%, I knew I needed to tweak the resume and adjust it. And it would give you recommendations in areas that you need to change to up your score in terms of your match to the job, okay? Was there a question? No? Okay, cool. And then I used, again, LinkedIn, and I provided the link to the hiring manager's profile and asked it to generate questions. What type of questions is Don likely to ask me about this particular position, right? And this is a pseudonym, the real name, gentleman's name is Dante Fierce, but I didn't want to do that. Put his real name in there, protect the innocent. And I tell you, I did that the day of my interview and generated 10 questions, and 3 of the 10 questions Dante asked me. Okay? It was amazing. And the other thing is, where did I say? Oh, yes. And I said, ask me to generate responses using the STAR method, right? So I had the answers ready for those 3 questions. Okay, that was great. I don't know if people are familiar with the STAR method. Okay, well, let me just briefly say, stands for situation, task, action, and results, okay? And that's a great way for answering behavioral interview questions, and it's a great format in terms of being very clear. They'll ask you, tell me about a time, you had a project trouble or whatever. So you describe the situation, you say what your task was, you talk about the actions you took, all right, and what the results you achieved, okay? It's a great method for answering interview questions. Yeah, help me write a compelling and persuasive. This goes back to your question before. This, because this was public sector, he was a Goodwill manager, within Goodwill, so really revised it and made a more mission-focused statement, drafting questions, you can even create brag sheets and elevator pitches for you. Okay, almost done. Get busy. Then again, this is pretty straightforward. I'm just saying, to find work is hard work, so you got to get to work. And this was, eventually after I got out of that funk that I was in, I made myself a very prescriptive schedule, right? In terms of starting my day at 6 a.m. out of the bed and working on my job, of finding a job, like from 9 to 5, basically. And this is some of the things that I did that helped me in terms of meditating, praying, gratitude practice. If you want to know more about that, I can describe it later. Visualizing my day, planning for success, exercising, watching, reading the news, so I stay up on current events, so you can handle the small talk and all that sort of thing. I think it's fairly straightforward. Part-time gigs, okay, this is a website where you can register, provide your information, and you can become a survey respondent or focus group respondent, and you can get anywhere from $150 to $300 depending on how much time you spend participating. It's local in Austin. This Athenium is a global thing. I got a couple of gigs out of it. I presented myself as an expert in education, right? Educational software. And I stated my rate, $300. And so I had, they had to complete a survey. They said, okay, you seem qualified. Great, we'll have a call, 1 hour, boom, did it with the client. And then, 3 weeks later, I got a check. Local charities for, volunteering. And then again, this is also very important. Rest, relax, have fun, right? Got to have a balance. Don't kill yourself with this job search. So, I took the weekends and the evenings off. Okay, almost done. Get paid. A few tips on negotiation. Never ever, and this is Charles Black's mantra, never ever reveal your current or previous salary or compensation expectation during the interview process, all right? Most postings when you typically provide a salary range, so it becomes a moot thing. But if they do ask, I suggest responding something, high level like this. Oh yeah, I'm comfortable with the range, and I expect I will consider any reasonable offer, and if offer is made, I expect it to be appropriately compensated for my skills and experience. Right? So you set yourself up for the good negotiation by that. Discuss the expectations after an offer is made. Represents how they value, and if you desire more, make an industry-based case. You can use, websites like PayScale and Glassdoor and so forth to find what the appropriate compensation range is for that role, right? And then, make an argument in terms of why you should be paid more. Question?
Starting to see some of these, as you're applying Workaday
Right.
systems, and some
Yeah.
are making a requirement. What is your?
Oh yes. So yeah, if you ask in the application to what your salary expectation is, what I always do is put 999,999.99. Okay, so that will satisfy the system, right? And then you're not revealing what your actual role is. But I will tell you one thing. One thing that did happen to me, the recruiter called me up and said, "Hey, I'd like to chat. I like your resume. Can we discuss?" And I said, "Okay, let's schedule a call. Have the next day," and then the first thing she says to me when I got on the phone, she says, "So, you're looking for almost $1 million, is that right?" And I said, well, I'll settle for less. It's okay. Don't accept informally. Take at least a day to consider it. Make sure you're meeting all your needs and compensation. Look at the healthcare coverage when it kicks in, vacation days it's all pretty obvious. I'm just saying, don't rush, because I know you're excited. I know you're going to get the job, but take some time to think about what you want to negotiate and discuss. And sometimes I have a pre-negotiation call when they make the offer and say, okay, thank you very much for the offer. I'd like a little time to consider it. Can I get back to you, on Monday, something like that? And I'm just kind of curious, do you have any, flexibility about the vacation days or, about the compensation level? You feel out the hiring manager a little bit so that you can think about it over the weekend on how you want to position your asks in the negotiation. Okay? And I think that is it, unless anybody has any more questions.